The topic of our talk today is State Resiliency Policy Design in the USA, and our guest is Nearika Naik-Tangal. What are the key drivers and priorities that states take into consideration for their resilience planning?
State resiliency planning has been going on in the states in many different forms for many years. However, in the last decade, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration data has shown that the frequency of inclement weather conditions have been increasing over time. And what's also become clear is that these disasters are happening over a short period and are very intense. And that has therefore increased an interest amongst states in resiliency planning. The resiliency planning varies depending on which state you're in and what kind of inclement weather conditions have been seen. As you all may know, there have been a lot more fires that we've read of in California. There are hurricanes that have devastated parts of the country. And just in the last month, as you know, we've seen extreme cold weather that has affected parts of the country where such cold weather typically does not disrupt economic activity or just impact lives in general.
And what about energy resilience planning?
The energy resiliency planning, I think I'm really glad you asked that question in particular, because just shining the light and putting the lens on energy resiliency planning, it can take the place of different forms, right? It could be that there is energy resiliency around grid services, right? And that could be seeing is there adequate voltage support? Is there adequate frequency response? Are there grid stabilization measures that have been implemented by the local utilities? It could take the form of energy independence from the larger grid. And this is something that really has, there's been a lot of interest in that based on what has happened in different states when inclement weather took place. I think the most famous example that we know is during Hurricane Sandy. We saw how in Manhattan, parts of Manhattan did manage to remain, did have light and did provide shelter and space in place because there was ability to island from the main grid. So I would say that's definitely an area of interest, and that has taken the form of really microgrids that constitute one distributed energy resource technology such as CHP, or it could take the form of including several different distributed energy resources such as solar and storage as well. The other component is grid hardening to make sure that that where pockets of the state where there are more emergency needs, there is much more grid hardening that is done by the local utilities. And that could take the place of just energy technologies that are employed on the grid per se. Could even be something simple as making sure that trees are cut along the right of way proactively before the next hurricane season comes, or if they anticipate fires taking place, or that distributed energy resources are actually implemented along the right of way, such as solar technology, to again build some islanding capability.
Are there any interesting examples of state resilience planning that we can mention?
Sure. So Colorado is one of the few states, and I smile as I say that, because Colorado, for folks who may not be aware of where it's located very much in the heart of the United States. But Colorado decided has taken a very holistic approach in how it defines resiliency, and by which I mean I have made sure to see that resiliency is not bifurcated into emergency management or hazard management or energy resiliency planning. And so what they did is they've created a resiliency office within the state And this office tends to look at resiliency planning holistically. And I haven't had the opportunity to talk to the state of Colorado directly, but my sense is that it also ends up, therefore, being a central office through which resiliency planning is done, and connects the different government state programs that work on emergency management or on energy resiliency. The state of Massachusetts developed their own plan, where they developed a statewide resilience program. And the focus of their program is definitely looking at the impacts of climate change. Their main driver is climate change, and they have therefore implemented solutions, particularly community solutions, through a series of grants that have been put into place through different solicitations over the years, and but their driver is very much climate change. New Jersey, on the other hand, has a climate change resiliency strategy, and that strategy is also, though, informed by ensuring there's a New Jersey Green Bank in place to help funding for communities that are looking to put in resiliency measures. And then the state of Maryland, when they were impacted by inclement weather conditions, took a lot of different approaches, and they rolled out this Resilient Maryland program last year that has taken a very interesting approach, where they've looked at the lessons learned from their previous policies around resiliency, and have created a program that primarily focuses on some key barriers that have made, to surmount some barriers for communities, for different parts of the economy to go out and build in resilient features. And this program is very much focused around energy in particular.